Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of the Teachers Lounge. We thank you all for joining us. We thank you for our guests. We thank you for logging in. We thank you for tapping into the conversation. This is our second episode of the Teachers Lounge, as sponsored by Community Social Justice Atlanta in partnership with Cross Culture 365 Ministries. We're grateful to have you all with us this evening. We know you've been in a long day of work. We know that you've been through some things today, and we are glad that you joined our conversation so that we can give you some information, some insight, have some laughs, but also some serious moments, and be most informative to let you know what's going on right now in the state of our schools, the state of education in the fiscal year 24. We know that some of you may be parents, some of you may be educators, some of you are leaders in education, some of you are community members, and some of you just happen to come up on the live and say, hey, what's going on here? Again, we hope to be most informative for what's happening with our children, resources for our parents, giving you information and conversation. You'll also have an opportunity to send in your questions in the chat. Those questions may or may not be able to be answered, but we will try to get to all questions in this 1 hour of power. If you're an educator or have ever been associated with education, then you know it always goes down where in the Teachers Lounge, where teachers are getting together, they're having conversations, they are engaging with each other and getting to know each other on a personal level. They're also celebrating the successes inside of their classrooms where they delivered instructions. They saw those bright lights come on inside of their scholars, as well as those serious moments when they talk about those things that may concern them the most as they do the greatest work of the greatest profession in all of the world that educates all other professions. And that's, of course, being teachers inside the classrooms on the front line, doing the work that they do. But it's not just about our teachers or our scholars or even our parents, but there are those individuals who are in leadership roles and different support roles and positions that provide a servant leadership to ensure the success of not only our children, but the success of our teachers, the success of our parents, and the success of their school community or their district at large. And right now, we're going to dive right into the conversation. I am your host, Melanie Connor, founder and CEO of the Legacy Continues LLC, where we offer educational consulting. We also offer support as well as coaching to leaders and aspiring leaders. And we also create those moments of culture curation inside of schools, districts that impact communities at large in the positive. So again, I welcome you. I thank you for joining us, and we look forward to an awesome conversation on this, the second episode of what we like to call the Teachers Lounge. So without further ado, I would like to bring in our awesome panel of guests that we have with us this evening. I have the great privilege of knowing all of these exceptional leaders, some personally and professionally. And so they're coming in right now. They're wonderful leaders. They're exceptional ladies. And I'm going to allow them the opportunity to introduce themselves to those of us who have joined us live. And if you want to share this link, please do so. We are live right now on Community Justice of Atlanta, as well as Cross Culture 365. So please tell a friend to tell a friend to tell an educator to tell your mom, your dad, your sister, your friends to join us for this great conversation. So again, without further ado, we're going to allow this awesome panel of phenomenal leaders to introduce themselves, starting with none other than Dr. Shaw. Dr. Shaw, would you please let our audience know how you want them to know you this evening during this conversation?
Good evening. My name is Nicole Shaw, and I am the proud principal of the Dutchtown High School. I have been in education for over 28 years, and I've served in the capacity of 10 years as a teacher, 2 years as an instructional coach, 6 years as an assistant principal, 5 years as a principal, 1 year as an assistant superintendent, and back to my love of being a principal at Dutchtown High School. I am very excited to be here with you this evening. In everything I do, I believe that it is about putting our children first, and I'm excited to engage in the conversation. And again, I am just excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And welcome again, the proud principal of Dutchtown High School, which I've had the privilege of visiting with you and your staff, and just the love and the camaraderie that you all share is something that you truly should be proud of, as well as your overall success. Next in line, we have another exceptional woman, exceptional leader joining us. Dr. Lee, can you please introduce yourself to our audience and how you want them to get to know you in this conversation this evening?
Thank you, Melanie. Well, I am Dr. Ebony Lee, the Acting Chief for Communications, Public Relations, Marketing, and Strategic Improvement in the Clayton County Public School Systems, where we are building a better tomorrow today under the dynamic leadership of Dr. Anthony Smith. And I've been in Clayton County Public Schools for my entire career, 24 years, starting as a student teacher, serving in many roles. And prior to this position, I was in teaching and learning. And so that's a love and a joy. And now I get to help communicate and tell our story. So I'm honored to be here this evening, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. I've had the pleasure of working with you way back in the day. So we'll throw back Thursday in a minute, but it's good to see you and good to have you. And just to watch your matriculation and your leadership and your impact on the district at large has been something to observe. So thank you for joining us this evening. And last but most definitely not least, we have Dr. April Crawford. Dr. Crawford, I've had the pleasure of meeting you as well, and seeing how you have come through where you've come from, and now being in Clay County Public Schools. So please introduce yourself in the way you want our audience to know you this evening.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you so much for having me. I want to bring greetings from Clayton County Public Schools, where we're building a better tomorrow today, again, under the leadership of the fantastic Dr. Anthony Smith. I am an educator this is my 30th year in education, and I've served in several capacities, ranging from the beginning as a special education teacher and an assistant principal, lead teacher, assistant superintendent, principal for 13 years, and currently serving in the role as deputy superintendent of Clayton County Public Schools in the Student Support Services Division, where we are maximizing our impact, removing barriers, and unleashing academic potential for all students.
Oh, yes, unleashing. I love that word. Oh, yes, you better say a motto. Oh, I love that. That's empowering by itself. I can't wait to see what that looks like for our conversation tonight. So again, we are so grateful to have all you ladies with us. We know that it is a work day, and you've been to work today. You've been serving and leading and supporting and doing all the things you're doing. And so we know you're not far removed from being fully at work in that capacity. So we thank you for taking the time this evening to join us in this conversation. Again, we want to make sure that our audience, no matter what genre they work in, or whether they have children or not, educators or not, they're able to be informed about what's going on in our schools, in our districts, and give them information, resources, and some of those things they may not always understand that goes on inside the four walls of those places. But we want them to support it, to understand what's happening, so we can all commune together, partnership together, and do what's best for our children. Because as we know as educators, and we all believe, education is the key to changing the world. And so thank you ladies again for joining us. We're going to jump right into the conversation. So because it's Thursday, and we know there was an old hashtag called Throwback Thursday, I heard that all of you at some capacity have been a teacher. And so I know Dr. Shaw, being a school principal, you serve teachers directly. Dr. Lee, in your capacity in teaching and learning, you did so from a district level, and also being an instructional facilitator and coach. Dr. Crawford, you as well. But when you were a teacher, I remember my first year of teaching in 2003. I was 23 years old, and I thought I knew exactly what I was doing until it got to live action inside of a classroom with a room full of 30 to 32 seventh graders in a middle school in Jackson Public Schools in Jackson, Mississippi. And I realized, I don't know if they taught me this in my education program. So let me try to figure it out. So let's go back to when you all were teachers. If you can remember, back when you were teachers. I know you've done several things since then. What was the thing that you felt that you did extremely well? And what was the thing that you understood that you may needed to grow into in order to fully be a positive impact on your students? We'll start with you, Dr. Shaw.
That's a very good question. That question helps me as a leader when I am employing teachers at my school. One thing that I know that I did well was connect with my students. I think building relationships with kids is the very first thing that we have to do as educators. We have to connect with our kids. I, when I'm looking to hire someone, I look for that connectivity, and I look to see that passion that they have in their craft of teaching. The one thing that I felt that I needed to improve on was I overworked myself as a teacher, and we have to do that to get ahead. But
Mhm.
I did it a bit too much, and and I listen to my teachers who constantly are, they're there as long as I am. I can leave out of the parking lot at 8 o'clock and I see cars still in the parking lot. Although I appreciate that, I still think about their well-being.
Mhm.
That's what's important, their well-being and being with family, and that they're taking care of themselves. But that is one thing that I don't regret the hard work that I put in, because it takes that. But I could have done a better job with my time management as I was
Mhm.
crafting my pedagogy of ensuring that my kids receive the best. I have to be my best, which means I have to be the best all the way around. My physical health has to be the
Yes,
best
ma'am.
as well. But those are the two things that stands out for me.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, Dr. Lee.
So back in the day,
Really? Back in the day, Dr. Lee? You
yeah,
look
those,
12.
those
You look
old days.
12, Dr.
So the year was 1999. Forest Park Middle. Um, Dr. Sam King, at the time he was Mr. King, brought me on as an English teacher. And what I did the best is what I often hear Dr. Ralph Simpson say, who's our deputy superintendent, one of them: you have to reach before you can teach. And
Mm.
just like Dr. Shaw, I built relationships, but I did it in a very clever way by infusing my students' backgrounds. Even then, I guess being culturally aware, I would bring their experiences into the lessons, and I would
Mm.
use their names. I would use tangible examples of events and scenarios that they had shared with me in the learning. And I just made learning very relevant, even before we talked about rigor and relevance. And my students, even to this day, and my oldest class is 36 years old, and they remember those experiences, and especially when I utilize their particularities into the lesson. The area that I would go back and say I could hone and develop more was forgiving myself when I didn't get it exactly
Mhm.
right, because
Mhm.
you're passionate, you want to make sure that you maximize the opportunities with the students, but we're not perfect, and it's
Mhm.
quality over quantity. And so just forgiving ourselves when we feel like we didn't make the impact we wanted to make.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Dr. Crawford?
I think what I did exceptionally well as a teacher, and I heard you say go way back, Melanie, but I did have to travel a little far. But you're always a teacher, so
Mhm.
I can move in present day as well. But one of the things that I think I did very well was being able to um, share my belief of my students with others. I had to always believe, and I didn't falter from that belief. When I had that interview and I told the principal who interviewed me that I believe that all students can learn, including students with disabilities, I continue to believe that. I stand by that, and I operate in that space. And when
Mhm.
others get out of that space, because I know everybody says that in their interview, I know everyone says that, I have to remind them of that in their commitment to teaching. So I
Mhm.
think that is what I think I've done that well, having the belief in students. And the thing that I think I would think about and advise others on is being able to not internalize. And I mean, you can't stop caring and loving for your students, but you have to be able to cut it off at some point, because
Mhm.
sometimes it can keep you awake at night. And I found
Mhm.
myself with a lot of sleepless nights, wondering about my kids and what was going on when they got home. And it just it made for a bad experience for me sometimes. And I couldn't wait to get there the next day, making sure that my children were okay. But just knowing when to kind of just shut it down a little bit and recoup, because if you're not fully energized and in the right state of mind, you're not going to be able to supply what you need to your students and your families each and every day. So I guess that's the bit of area that I feel like I need to have improved a little bit better.
That's amazing. That is amazing. You all have pretty much given any new teacher starting out or any teacher in general advice on how to balance, being a somewhat perfectionist at what you do and wanting your students to get the lesson the first time or be engaged the first time, but also those struggles that you sometimes are not always vocalizing because the expectation is you're the teacher. You know what to do. You're going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. We trust you with this. And sometimes we struggle with trusting ourselves. Now, I'm assuming, I don't want to assume, that all of you went through a undergraduate teacher education program. Are you majored in education? Okay. So yeah, I did too, until my senior year when the Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi, home of the Tigers. No, okay. I went through the teacher education program, got to my senior year, and my mom always to this day tells me you procrastinate too much. Waited to December to take the praxis at that time, as we know is now the case. And I missed the passing score, also majoring in English, Dr. Lee, by 2 points. And Jackson State would not let me go out into the field that spring, my last year, and do my student teaching, although I had everything else. And so I graduated in English because my mom told me you need to make a decision because we only got so many more payments we're going to be making. And so I made a decision, graduated, but I went the alternate route. Because that summer, Jackson State provided a Master's of Arts in Teaching. And as you know, we have several teachers now in the profession that may not have went the traditional route. And we also know that research tells us that the colleges of education are no longer producing teachers in the mass numbers that they used to in previous generations. And so I say that to say, how do you, once in a principal space or in a hiring space, our support space, once you have those individuals that come on the job that may be alternate certification, or they may be taking the route of being on a waiver. And to explain a waiver for those that may not know is when you come in with a certain degree and that may qualify you to be, become certified as a teacher, but you're not yet certified, but you're given the job as the certified teacher. So how do you then support those that may not have come with the background traditionally that we came with, that walk into this space thinking, well, I took math in middle school, so surely I can teach math in middle school, and it doesn't become that simple. So in each of your capacities or capacities you've had before, how do you support those individuals to ensure that they are executing proficient instruction, that they are good classroom managers, and they're doing all of those things that someone that comes with a degree may know, an idea of what to do, but they may have no idea? How do you support them to ensure that they're delivering what you need inside of that classroom with your scholars? Let's go with Dr. Lee. From past experience or current experience or the gamut.
Yeah. So thank you for that question, Melanie. And it's a scenario that we're all contending with, just because the nature of where we are in the workforce, and then what we call the career changers as well coming to education. So in Clayton County Public Schools, under the leadership of Dr. Delphia Young, she's our Deputy Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. Dr. Young, when she came on board, she said, we're going back to the basics. And BASIC stands for building academic success through intentional classroom strategies. But really the concept of back to the basics is simplifying and doing fewer things very well, especially in light of the pathway in which we're attracting our educators. One of the books that we read initially asked the question, are we becoming a profession without a practice? And the way to make sure we keep the practice is making sure our teachers understand the fundamentals. What are the key practices of creating a good lesson? How do we simplify it? Even if you're coming from another industry, we know some of those behaviors that help us learn. And how do we translate that into writing lessons for our students? Another critical element has been fostering this culture of collaboration. bringing our educators into spaces with other educators where they're talking about the standards, they're demonstrating for each other, they're using the quality resources that we've provided for them, and even talking about the students' needs and how to adjust the lessons accordingly. And you can't do any of that well without surrounding it with robust professional learning. And in Clayton County, we have a professional learning process that matches the need to the actual support that needs to occur and gives teachers time to practice the learning and get feedback. We have instructional coaches throughout many of our facilities, but they're also layered with district level lead teachers. And our lead teachers and coordinators, they're in our schools. They're in there with high intention, working with the coaches and working with the teachers. And then the other practice that we have is called unit cadres. And that's where teachers, those coming traditionally or untraditionally, can log into a virtual space and ask questions and just engage with their other colleagues. So I think simplifying, having a culture of collaboration, layering that with professional development and other opportunities for personalized support is critical with the current workforce.
Very critical indeed, absolutely, because there was a time when teachers were overwhelmed by all of the resources and all of the support and all of the programs they had to implement and also do themselves. And so to simplify those things gets back to really the tradition of the profession while using some innovation, of course, along the way. Dr. Shaw, based on what Dr. Lee said was an overall district perspective for the most part, how does that look inside of the school is what you do as a principal, getting that support, which I'm sure is very similar in your district, but also transitioning that to your administration, your academic coaches, your leaders, and then your teachers and what they do inside the classroom?
We take our provide that additional professional development, ensuring that it is aligned with what the district does and the expectations there. Our district in Henry County Schools, we have a HEART program for teachers who are from years first year teachers all the way to third year teachers. And then what we do with the HEART program is they work with the teachers at the district, but we have our academic coaches who also work with them. Our academic coaches, they meet with the teachers, they provide the professional development, they do individualized, personalized the support that they need. Each month at Dutchtown High School, each month, the entire administrative team meet with all the new teachers. If you're new to the school, you have to attend this meeting each month with us. And I like how she discussed about the basics, because that's what we do, get to the basics of things, because all of the resources that we have, it does become overwhelming. We're very intentional about during collaborative planning and the support that we provide for them. We're very intentional about how often we meet with them. We're very intentional about ensuring we have buddy systems in place for them, and they have those mentors in-house as well as at the district level of supporting us with that. So everything that that she covered, getting to the basics is the one thing that really stood out, because that is something that we emphasize a lot at the school. If you think about someone coming in from an engineer coming into a high school to teach engineer, that's totally different. But some of my best teachers have come from industry, to come in the school and to teach. So providing the support is the one thing that really stands out, because it's one thing to provide professional development, but if you're not monitoring and you're not ensuring that they are understanding, you're really defeating the purpose, because they still will become overwhelmed. So taking them step by step and being intentional about how we're personalizing the support for our teachers, that's something that we do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you provide the support for the teachers, we know that you can give as much training, as much support, as much feedback and observation, and as many resources as possible. But once we get inside the classroom with our children, that we are still maybe faced with some challenges, no matter how prepared we are. And so, Dr. Crawford, I know in your position as aligned with student support services, one thing that has become vastly important in the field of education in our world world in general is our social emotional states and our social emotional learning opportunities, not just for our children, but also for our adults. And so I know that you have a huge umbrella of services that you provide. So tell us a little bit about some of those services, but how they get to the children directly and how they're able to support some of those behavior challenges or some of those even social emotional challenges that may hinder the best prepared teacher from getting across to that child. So talk about a little bit about what you do, what services are provided to make sure that we're not only educating our children academically, but we're also educating and supporting the total child.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think is very important is students' overall personal health and well-being, and also the personal health and well-being of our adults. The pandemic showed a huge gap in our foundation, and it really, really illuminated all of the issues and challenges that our students have to face day in and day out. And it really unveiled that there were some students who had some deep-rooted social emotional issues, as well as our families. So one of the things that we do under umbrella of student support services, we are a comprehensive student support system, and we're developing a system of how do we support students from the moment that they walk in the classroom with behaviors, with strategies to deal and cope with challenges that they may have. Because a lot of times people say, stop misbehaving, don't do that. Well, a lot of times kids don't understand what you mean by that, and you have to teach them the replacement strategies. This is what you do when you are having confrontation. This is what you do when you have conflict. This is how you address a situation when you are not comfortable with a learning situation in your classroom. So what we do under the umbrella of student support services, we provide the appropriate training to our counselors. We have counselors that fall under that are school-based. So we have counselors, we have our social workers, we have our psychologists, we have our behavioral specialists, and we have our coaches as well. And all of those people work together to make sure that we provide on-time services to our students. And outside of that, with our social workers, if a student is having a particular situation such as food insecurity, if they need mental health supports, we have all the resources that we bring in with our community partners that are allowing us to have those services provided to our students. Some of our schools have mental health specialists on site, and then we also have two school-based health centers in our district where we're able to have supports provided there. We have healthcare technicians, nurses, all those things we wrap around. All those things equal the whole child. We also have academic supports. Students with disabilities fall under our area, but we also have what we call as a multi-tiered system of support. And with the multi-tiered system of support, when a student is engaging in learning difficulties, our student support team is there to work with them from ranging from attendance to academic struggles to behavioral struggles. So there are ways that we always try to come in, and there are tiers that we move our students through. First tier is what everyone gets. That's the love, that's the support, that's the tier 1 instruction that we bring to classroom every day. But then we may have some students who struggle beyond that. So we have our tier 2 interventions where we have our EIP teachers come in and provide support. We also have interventions that they provide through strategies that we may have that go a little deeper. We pull students, we provide support within the classroom. So, and then we also have our psychologists who are available, and they deal with our mental supports that we provide in the classroom. And I'm trying to think of everything. I mean, there are just so many things that we are equipped with as a school system. And then we also have our federal programs where we have funding resources where we're able to have above and beyond what our regular general budget provides for our students and make sure that they have access. So, and then with our parents and social workers, we work with our parents because we realize in education, we can't do this alone. So a lot of parents want to support their kids. So we make sure that we help provide them with the tools, the how-to. This is how you help your child with homework. This is how you provide and have a parent conference. This is how you do the various things, reach a child teacher. This is a communication protocol, just all the different things that we provide for families, because we want to empower them to be their child's first teacher so that we can have an experience together that helps that student to be successful. So those are, I can go on all day about the supports, but I know we have a small snippet of time. So those are just a few of the things that we do across the district, but most importantly, just focusing on students' well-being and making sure that they have what they need to be successful.
Ladies, I want you to give a round of applause to yourselves and educators in general and the work that you're doing with your colleagues that you represent on this call right now. We have reached the halfway mark. It's 7:30. And I think I've asked 2 questions, but the information that has been given has been so informative and it has been so empowering. And it's given us a look behind the scenes of what everyone who's a non-educator may not know is happening inside the 4 walls of your schools or inside the district at large. All of the services, all of the things that are provided beyond reading and writing and arithmetic, as the old saints used to say, are there. They're there inside of our schools. They're there inside of our districts. And there's nothing that I don't think anyone can say that's not being provided as a resource for not only our children, but also our adults, our families, our parents, and our school community at large. Just to give a recap again, we are live on the Teachers Lounge, episode number 2. And we thank you all for joining us. Those that are joining us live, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube, you can watch us on Facebook at Community Social Justice Atlanta, as well as Cross Culture 365 Ministries, who is a partner with this particular episode. We thank our panel of guests who are the most phenomenal leaders that I've got an opportunity to talk to most recently, Dr. Shaw, Dr. Lee, and Dr. Crawford. It's a lot of doctors in the room, guys. It's a lot of doctors in the room. Let me straighten my coat a little bit here. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you, ladies, for joining us. You all are phenomenal, and we're going to continue. We have about 28 more minutes, and so we will be taking live questions from our guests. Thank you all who have chimed in the chat already and given our panel of guests their kudos for being who they are and how proud of you are of them. And so right now, I have a question coming in the chat. And so the question says, what can school administrators do to slow down or halt the great exodus of seasoned teachers from our schools? Again, well, the question went away, but I hope you ladies heard it the first time. What can school administrators do to slow down or halt the great exodus of seasoned teachers from our schools? And let me frame that a little bit. We know that when school started this year, and we know for the past few years, there's been what we've called a teacher shortage. And although it's just now coming to the forefront of many news outlets and conversations, it's kind of been something that we've dealt with over the past few years before it came to the forefront. So how do we, in your capacity, from the building principal to the district level personnel, ensure that we are doing what's needed to be done to retain our teachers and therefore provide or help provide, making certain that our scholars have certified staff members standing in front of them, even with the shortage, so they're getting the proper and proficient instruction necessary. Dr. Shaw, I know you have those boots directly on the ground, and every year when you start school, that 100% fully staffed is out there for you. And so how do you ensure that happens outside of this being a great principal? What else do you do to ensure that those persons that are there are sustained in the profession?
I think it is very important that as a school administrator, I alluded to it a little earlier about establishing a good rapport with your teachers, having that good relationship with your teachers, because if you have a connectivity with your teachers, you have a better runway of supporting them the way that they need to be supported. I cannot emphasize enough about support. We have to understand that after COVID, and COVID, of course, is still here, but after COVID and during COVID, it really took a toll on our teachers, our veteran teachers, new teachers, people running away from wanting to become teachers. The education field, the medical field were the two that were really hit the hardest. So as a leader, we got to think differently. We've got to operate different. You cannot lead the same way you did pre-COVID. And for everyone who led during that time, during COVID time as a building leader, they have a story to tell. because it wasn't every day you walk in that building and you just lead at being a principal and it's a normal day. You had to be more than a principal. You have to meet the needs of your faculty and staff. You got to step to their level of letting them know, I understand what you're going through. We still have to do that, because just as Dr. Crawford talked about the social and emotional needs of our students, our teachers have those needs as well. And as principals, as we build wraparound services around our students, we have to do the same thing for our teachers. If they do not feel supported, that's what's happening them to exit. We have to realize that you have Amazon that's paying just as much as the teacher's salary. We have jobs out there that's competing. So therefore, if we can't do anything else, if we can show the support for our teachers, and just as we said, how things can become overwhelming for them, but making things more simple, ensuring that as a leader, you know the job has to be done. I'm not saying lower your expectations, because I just don't believe in that. But at the same time, continuing with the expectation that you have for your teachers, for your faculty and staff, but providing that support that they need. And you may ask, what does that support look like? I promise you, everybody's support is different. That's why it is so important that we personalize that support. And it all starts with building that positive relationship with them. It's nothing like coming to a building where it is a family atmosphere. And if they feel welcome, they feel a sense of happiness, they feel a sense of support, they feel a sense of peace being in the building. And if everything that they do every single day, what we live by at Dutchtown, everything you do, you must keep the children first. That's your driving factor right there, your kids. You put kids first in everything that you do. And ensuring that you have that on a daily basis, ensuring that you are there for not just the students, but for the teachers too, because they need that. They need that. Teaching is different, just like leadership is different in education. But support is the biggest thing that I would say that we definitely need to do for them.
Absolutely. I remember principaling in a pandemic, and I had a sweatshirt made. I think it said pandemic principaling. I think I understand the assignment, because the assignment was different every day. You know, you've done it for years and you're like, okay, we got this, you know, can't be too different. And then we returned to the building and it was like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. I don't know if I've been trained for this. But in that, what we did learn was exactly what you said, how to check in and check on, how to be more compassionate and mindful, not just for the children and their parents, but also for our staff. But we also know that took resources sometimes, and resources that we had to either fundraise for or build partnerships for, not just from the school level. If we felt like we went in 1 week and it was a little drag on the energy, we knew we might need to feed them on Friday just to get that motivation up. And so partnerships had to be developed. And we know Dr. Lee and Dr. Crawford, you all know all too well about developing partnerships and what you do. And I know that in Clayton County, there are many partnerships, Dr. Lee, you can speak on, and Dr. Crawford, you do the efforts that you make, even providing those mental health resources with those persons outside of the district or inside of the district that are not inside of the school system with those partnerships. So with you ladies, Dr. Lee, you first explain the partnerships and how your district and in your position, you work to get those partnerships to support not only just what's happening with our children, but what we can do for our adults as well and the school community at large.
Thank you, Melanie. You know, we always say it takes a village to raise a child, but it actually takes a village to support adults as well. And under the leadership of Dr. Smith, at the very onset, he launched an audit, and he wanted a full-blown audit of what's working, what's not, and hired a very expert team. And in addition to having the auditors, he paired a teacher consultant with one of our teachers to work alongside the auditors, so that when we receive the report, is also from the teacher's perspective. And the findings from that report, as well as just providing our teachers with the space to share, informed our partnership and what some of the teachers referred to as perks efforts. So under the leadership of Dr. Smith, we've expanded our creative services department and community and employee engagement, and that's led by Executive Director Ms. Shakira Rice. And we've been able to work with our community partners to provide discounts to our teachers, to host grocery store experiences just to make them feel appreciated and celebrated. outings that they can go to and partake in free of charge. We host, we take our teachers on opportunity trips so that they can, just be let loose and not feel the stress of being an educator all of the time. And so I do think having the audit to really reveal what our teachers felt they needed, which was one, a voice at the table to express themselves, but also to really galvanize these various partnerships. We expand partnerships with our higher ed, and we utilize our college level staff to provide training, support for our educators and other partners as well. So it's been very strategically done. We didn't want any partner coming in stating we can offer this service, and it wasn't mapped to the identified needs that were expressed by the educator. And I just have to also just shout out our principals. And Melanie, you were right there on board. Our principals, I mean, they've always been awesome, but during the pandemic, you all just really made sure our teachers were at the forefront. We called it SEL moments, but we were SEL district, and we're continuing to be that SEL district under the leadership of Dr. Crawford, just so that we all can just have a space to give ourselves grace and to be balanced in this work.
Right. And to know Dr. Crawford, you can tell with her spirit on the phone, her smile is just, it exudes that energy of SEL when you talk to her in a conversation. So Dr. Crawford, I know that you have partnerships based on all the services you provide inside the district with the clinics inside the district, the personnel inside the school, but talk about a little bit about the resources that you all sometimes provide. Even I know as a principal, when there were certain scenarios in the building and there were needs for families, even when it came to living spaces, we could call and make contact with student services, and those resources will be provided. So talk a little bit about those partnerships that are also meaningful, that are outside the district, that help provide for our children, our families, and even sometimes our employees.
Absolutely. It just makes my heart full to think about our student support team, because they are always Johnny on the spot. If you call, they answer. I mean, like Ken Nugent, one called us, that's all. I'm telling you, a principal called me yesterday, and I can't remember the exact conversation, but we had a student come in, and the student did not have the resources that they needed to be, that he or she needed to be successful, and the family was worried about where they were going to sleep the next night. They contacted our team. Our team helped settle that person down, and that family had a place to lay their head. And they were able to pull in with their community, make sure that they had somewhere to sleep, they had food to eat, and they had clothing to wear. So that's just a small amount of what they do every day. I mean, and unfortunately, we have crisis in schools. Where someone may lose a student, may lose a family member. So we have a crisis team as well. And anytime that occurs in a school, that crisis team goes out and they work with the staff, they work with the students, and they make sure they're providing one-on-one counseling. They do group counseling, and they work with them. We also have grants, and we were able to secure funding as well, and also invest in what we call community schools. All of our middle schools and high schools have community schools where we have a community of support right there in the school, where they're doing a needs assessment, and they're able to determine what are the particular needs in this particular building. And they develop goals, and they get caseloads. That's the community in schools. And they have a caseload of students that they work with, and they help them to move on and prepare for college or career. And then we have what we call community schools. We were able to add 2 more this year for a total of, I think it's 5. Don't quote me on that. I think I've messed up, but we do have those community schools as well. And with community schools, what's so powerful about that one? And we're proud to say that we're out of the state of Georgia. We're one of the only school districts that have really launched it from a district level. I mean, other people have it, but we've pushed through from a district level. And what they do is they do a needs assessment and they look at the whole community. And not only do they provide support to that entire school community, they also provide support outside of the school. So job training for families, making sure that they have access to resources, making sure that they're connecting them to the appropriate persons, be it a job opportunity or be it a learning opportunity. We have adult education classes that they link them to if they were wanting to get further education in GED. We have those supports as well. So there's a plethora of supports that we have that we could not make possible or accessible to our families without our community. So I know I mentioned the other resources, but that's just how when you said it earlier, Ms. Connor, when you said there's not anything the school system does not do, when I think about it, there isn't. I mean, you heard Ms. Shaw. I know Ms. Shaw very well. They call her Mama Shaw. I mean, because when they need her, she's there. So that's how all of our principals are. I can't think of a principal that doesn't say, let me love on this child and find what this child needs. If they have to stay there at 7:00 at night because someone has not picked up a child or something has happened, they're going to be there for that child. So I want everyone, because public education has been on attack for the last few years. And people have to realize, and it's just taken for granted sometimes, unfortunately, what a school system and what those people in the building do each and every day, from the classroom, from our parapros to our custodians, to our teachers, to our principals, to our district leaders. We pour in and we give all that we have. We're exhausted when we go home. But guess what? We don't complain because we love it. It comes from the center of our heart. So if someone today is in here and they're not in education, make sure you go and thank your teacher. Make sure you thank your principal. Make sure you thank your school district administrators. We don't do it for thanks, but sometimes they just need their buckets filled, because it's a profession that's not about pay. It's a profession that's about love.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. As you mentioned, the village, we've always heard that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And, as time has progressed, I'm a third generation educator myself, and I watched my grandmother and my mom and my aunts do this, and they went to college to do this. And, I was raised in a very great village. Thank God for Jesus for that. And, going into education and working in some villages that were not like mine, I think it taught me a lot about patience, for one, but also just being even more compassionate towards those that are in the community. And educators, we're doing a great work from which we cannot come down. And so we're always thankful for what they do and what you guys do at every level, because without that village, because there are some parts of the village that are not so present right now, but that part of the village has remained stable from year to year, generation to generation, and that's the foundation of education. Now, speaking of villages, you talked about what you all do as servant leaders. We've talked about what teachers do in their capacity as servants to those children. And now we know that we're getting down to the close of the first semester of school. And parents, we love you all as much as we love your children. And we know that you are sending the best that you have. And we know you're doing your best every single day. But you all lean on us a whole lot in these past few years to kind of take care of anything that's everything for not only the children, but sometimes for you. And we don't mind, because we have hearts of service. But then there are times, all the time, where we need for you all also to stand in the role that you have in the village as the parents, and not only support us in the school, but also support us while you're at the household. And so, Dr. Shaw, I'm going to lean into you with this one, because I know it's only a few more weeks left before the end of the first semester. School has started. It's been rolling along, and things have happened in the positive, not so positive, challenging, or the praise reports. But we know it's coming down to that final grading period. And we know that there are some things and priorities that our scholars, and I know you're in a high school, but you can probably speak to not only just in general what all parents need to be focused on right now, but as we get ready to close out this semester, what is it that we are requiring and we need parents to also play their role in the village that supports every child. Because it's not just about when the report card comes out and now all of a sudden, hey, what's happening, what's going on, but what needs to be done along the way to support those scholars in being successful and finishing this semester strong from the parents. So if you could make a request list, Dr. Shaw, now is the time to put your request out there and make them known. And we're going to speak those things and they will be so. So go ahead and let us know. You're talking to your parents now. So what do you need from them?
As parent, being a parent myself, but as parents, we have a tendency of, and I appreciate it, but we have a tendency of saying they're at school. But yes, my scholars at school, but parents, we need you too. We need you to be a part of knowing everything about your child while they're in school. We have tests coming up in the semester. We have milestone testing. We've had programs and interventions, and I can speak for our system as a whole, but especially as my cluster, because we try to ensure that what goes on in the elementary school, you can see it cascading throughout the middle school as well as through the high school. But the support from our parents to ensure that kids are where they need to be, that they are receiving that academic support, because we have the interventions in place. We have the boot camps, we have the tutoring, but when you think about the support that we need from our parents to ensure that our kids are receiving that additional support so that they can be successful, when we think about parents knowing where your kids are, know where your children are. That includes on the weekend. That includes during the day. And if you are in tune with what's going on from day to day at school, and attend these school council meetings and attend the parent teacher conferences that we have and so on and so forth, know what's going on with your children, but know where your children are. Know who their friends are. Know who they're communicating with. That is huge, because a lot of parents are lost and not knowing, well, I didn't know they were part of that group. Or I didn't know you've got to know everything about your child. It takes a village. I tell every parent, this is not a job for me. This is a call. My husband can tell you, when I get up in the morning, I don't complain. When I pull in that parking lot, I don't complain. What makes joy for me is seeing those kids, that they're there, that they're in school. Have your kids at school on time. You're setting them back. Get them to school on time. Make sure that they're in class on time. You're getting the calls. They're getting the robocall. These things may seem small, but they're really a big issue. If they're not in the class, we can't educate them. So we need them there. But more than anything, we need our parents a part of this community. It's not Shaw School. It's our school. It is not the teacher school. It is our school. It takes a village for us to do this. During the summer, I have a Leadership 101 training. I have a in-service of Leadership 101. It involves my teacher leaders, my administrators, my parents, and my student leaders. It takes that complete village in order to lay the vision and focus to have an outstanding year. If one piece of that puzzle is missing, you're going to have trouble moving forward. We all have to operate together, including our community, having our community involved in that. If we keep, as building administrators, an open door policy of letting our parents in, letting them stay involved in the lives of their kids, they have a tendency, when they get to that secondary level, they'll let them go. I've heard parents say, "Miss Shaw, they're yours." No, they're ours. We got to do this together. It takes that village in order to see them cross the finish line. But I do tell my parents now, from that 8:15 to 3:15, that's when I become Mama Shaw, and I want to pick up where you left off to make sure that they are doing what they need to do in order to be successful. We need the parents to stay involved and help our kids to be successful so we can finish this semester strong.
Yes, ma'am. One thing I used to tell my parents is that we're co-parenting. This is a co-parenting relationship. I don't know how many of you all it is as parents in the house. Well, I'm a part of we are co-parenting. So when I lean in your direction, I need you to lean in mine. We're going to practice the same grace and get through this thing together. Now, I know Dr. Lee and Dr. Crawford, there are resources that I'm familiar with that allow parents to find information that they need. I know there's the parent portal, and there are the parent portal and the different things they can do to communicate and find out. There's the parent resource center with a parent liaison that allows them the opportunity. So Dr. Lee, if you will, we have about 6 minutes. Give us a 2-minute spiel on how parents can communicate with the schools, not only on electronic platforms, but also directly with counselors or teachers. And then Dr. Crawford, if you'll give us a little bit of the side of the parent liaison, parent support room, or how that could work and they have access to that. Dr. Lee?
Yeah. So thank you. That's a very important question in terms of making sure our parents are looped in, because they're a critical component. But essentially, one, I will say for the platforms, make sure your contact information is up to date. That is our most efficient way to get to all of our parents, through the portal, through School Messenger. But other than that, we want to make sure that students are actually learning. That's why they're coming to school. So I won't trust my child to tell me that he or she is learning. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for evidence, paying attention to their homework that they're bringing home or their lack of homework. And then I encourage parents to schedule check-in times through the principal to meet with their teachers or counselors to make sure that we're utilizing all of the resources. I do want to shout out that we have tutor.com for all of our students, every grade level, free of charge, 24/7 access to a tutor. And our students can access it through our Rapid Identity portal. So I just encourage parents to stay connected. I am a new parent, so I understand that it's challenging at times. And so I just say keep it simple by staying connected, be on the portal, check grades, and ask questions of your child and the teacher.
Dr. Crawford, 2 minutes. Parent Resource Center, parent liaison.
Okay. Every school in Clayton County has a parent liaison and a parent resource center. And what that is if you want to come in and you want, let's say we mentioned the portal and you don't understand how to navigate the portal, your parent liaison is there to help you learn how to navigate the portal. They can open the computer and take you hand over hand so that you can know how to get those resources. We have little books in the libraries at the resource center where they can have the books to take home to read with their kids. They can check them out, and they also have different ways of skills that are available. I also want to tie in something really quick with our if your kid is struggling with learning, we do have our counselors who teach them study skills. They teach our at-risk students how to have success in the classroom. They may have anxiety about testing. They're there to support them in that way as well. And then I want to say something from the superintendent's end. Our superintendent has held us accountable. He is making sure that we are holding ourselves to high expectations, and he's holding us to high expectations. But guess what? He's also holding our parents to high expectations.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be lenient with our parents. We want our parents to hold their kids accountable. And let me tell you something, kids appreciate it when they become adults and they say, you gave me boundaries. Mm-hmm. A kid has to have boundaries because that helps them be successful in life. Life has boundaries. So I want to really, really say, hold your children accountable. And I'm not saying don't believe your child, but I'm going to say believe but verify. Check but verify. So don't just have empty belief, because they are children. And children don't always have best judgment, and they make mistakes. So just from that end, accountability, check and verify, and be involved.
Thank you guys so much. We have gotten to the 2-minute mark. It went by so fast. You guys are so informative. You're experts in your area. You have a plethora of experience. Your passion exudes through this conversation for what you do as you serve our scholars and our staff, our parents, and our school communities at large. I want those that have joined us to just know we thank you for joining us on this particular episode of the Teachers Lounge. This is episode 2. I would like to thank Cross Culture 365 Ministries in partnership with Community Social Justice of Atlanta for allowing this opportunity and this conversation to take place. We want to make certain that our guests who chimed in live with us in the chat, we want you to know that we thank you for your participation. We know there's plenty of places you could have been this evening along with these ladies, probably getting some rest and decompressing until the next day. But you all joined us this evening for this great conversation that was most informative. So I want to say for sure, thank you, Dr. Shaw. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you, Dr. Crawford. You are doing a phenomenal job. And as I always say, you're doing a great work from which you cannot come down. And so we hope that everything that you desire and everything that you do comes back to you full circle because of the great work that you're doing in the village and in the community that you serve as those servant leaders. Again, there will be, just found out hot off the press, episode 3 of the Teachers Lounge coming soon, where we will give more topics, more conversation, more information, and even some of those things that are scenarios that we need parents and community members to know that happen behind the scenes before you see them in front of the scenes. So again, we thank you all for joining us. Thank you, ladies, so much for your time and